Hello there and welcome. Today we're plugging into the story of electricity. We are going to trace how this completely invisible force went from being a total mystery to becoming the powerful grid that's the backbone of, well, pretty much everything we do. So, let's get into it.
You gotta love this quote from over 100 years ago. It's just so humble, so honest, right from the dawn of the electrical age. Scientists back then didn't know exactly what electricity was, but you know what? They were absolutely determined to figure out how to use it. And that spirit of discovery, that's our starting point today.
So, here's our game plan. We'll start with this early, kind of weird idea of an electric fluid. Then we'll see how it was put to work in the very first devices. After that, we'll trace its journey to the massive grid we have now, understand the power that comes into your home, and finally, we'll look at the incredible safety systems that keep us all protected.
All right, so how do you even begin to describe something you can't see? Early thinkers, long before they knew about electrons and all that, needed some kind of analogy to picture this invisible force. And their solution was, honestly, both simple and pretty brilliant.
They came up with this idea of electricity as a type of fluid. Now, we know today that's not scientifically accurate, but thinking of it as a weightless, super fast liquid was incredibly helpful back then. It let people visualize concepts we still use, like flow and current. It made the invisible, well, imaginable.
And this fluid idea, it's perfect for explaining one of electricity's most basic properties. See, some materials, they called them conductors, were like these wide-open pipes, just letting that fluid rush right through. But others, the insulators, they were like a solid blockage, stopping the flow completely. And that simple difference is the foundation of every single electrical circuit ever built.
Okay, so once you figure out how to guide this fluid, what's the next logical step? Well, you make it do something useful, right? This is where theory turns into technology. And honestly, this is where the world starts to change big time. Let's look at one of the earliest game-changing devices. Check this out. This is the telegraph, one of the first and simplest ways to use an electric circuit. When the operator presses that key, bam, the circuit is complete. It allows that electric fluid, the current, to flow from the battery through the wire and into that electromagnet. The magnet turns on, pulls a lever down, and makes a click sound. You release the key, the current stops, the lever pops back up. It seems simple, but it meant instant communication across huge distances for the first time ever.
Now stop and think about what this really represents. The telegraph wasn't just about sending messages. It was about mastering the control of electricity. That basic idea, a simple on-off switch, is exactly what powers our entire digital world. I mean, the phone in your pocket has billions of microscopic versions of that exact same circuit, just switching on and off at incredible speed.
And then you have this other game changer, the incandescent lamp. Here, the whole idea was to use the power of resistance. By forcing current through a really bad conductor, that tiny little filament, you generate so much friction and heat that it glows white hot. And boom, you have light. So you've got these two amazing ideas, one device using the free flow of electricity and the other one using the resistance to it.
Look, having a single telegraph or one light bulb is amazing, but powering an entire city or a whole country, that is a completely different challenge. This meant we had to move from simple, little circuits to a vast interconnected network that we now just call the grid.
So here is that modern journey from start to finish. It all begins at a generation station. From there, a transformer steps up the voltage to crazy high levels so it can travel a long way across transmission lines. Then, when it gets near its destination, a substation steps the voltage back down. Smaller distribution lines carry it to one last transformer near your house, which steps it down one final time so it's safe to use.
To really appreciate this system, you have to wrap your head around the incredible scale of the power we're talking about. I mean, the numbers are just staggering, and they are the whole reason this system works so well.
Just look at that number, 500 kilovolts. That's 500,000 volts. For a little perspective, the outlet in your wall is about 230 volts. So why on earth go so high? It all comes down to one word: efficiency. Pushing electricity at such an extreme voltage drastically cuts down on how much energy is lost as heat over hundreds of miles. It's really the only way long-distance power lines are even possible.
And this chart really puts that whole journey in perspective. Power is made at around 20,000 volts. For its big cross-country trip, it's cranked up to a massive 500,000 volts. Then, right before it comes into your home, it's brought all the way down to a much, much safer 230 volts. This whole process of stepping voltage up and down is the absolute key to our modern power system.
Okay, so we're talking about handling 500,000 volts. Obviously, that is incredibly dangerous. And that's why every single part of the system has a critical, often totally invisible layer of safety built in to protect us from all that power.
One of the biggest dangers is something called touch potential. Just imagine a faulty toaster where a live wire accidentally touches the metal casing. Well, if you touch that toaster, the electricity might try to travel through you to get to the ground. And preventing that dangerous path is one of the biggest goals of electrical safety.
So, how do we protect against that? With a super robust grounding system. According to the National Electric Code, a proper ground path has to be a solid, unbroken line to the earth. It has to be tough enough to handle a massive surge of current if something goes wrong. And this is the most important part. It has to provide a really easy, low-resistance path, like an emergency exit, for that electricity to escape. This makes sure that if there's a problem, the electricity takes that super easy path to the ground instead of the much harder path, which is through you. When you think about it, it's an absolutely incredible story of progress. We went from a humble guess about some kind of invisible fluid to a global system of immense power and complexity. It really makes you wonder, if this is what we managed to do in the last 100 years, what on earth will the next one bring? Thanks for watching.